Back to the Hill, Fox News confirming Mitch McConnell's team believes that Nancy Pelosi could send the articles of impeachment to the Senate perhaps as soon as today. Ranking Republican House Judiciary Committee with me now, Georgia Republican Doug Collins. And, sir, good morning to you. I believe there has to be a vote first in the House. Do you expect that today, sir?
We've not heard about it yet, and I would be hearing about it. We've already approved the rule that would actually let that bill come to the floor, which names the managers and then actually sends the bill. So I've not been notified yet. This will be a very short debate once it happens, but I have not been notified, so I'm not looking for it today.
You are not, okay, as of the moment. Forecast then, when could or would the trial begin, do you believe, on the Senate side of Congress?
That's a great question, and I think that's all in the hands of Nancy Pelosi right now. She's still holding these documents. She's still, keeping these from the Senate. If she would send them over the first of the week, I'm sure it could start just a few days after that. So, I think she's in a tough bind. I think she understands that her case has been very weak in the House. It is not something that the Senate can actually take seriously, because we've made the case that they're, procedurally it was terrible, and factually it's wrong. So when you look at those kind of things going over, they know that they're going to be exposed. So she doesn't want to send it over to a quick and hurried death is exactly what's going to happen. But I think she'll send them for the first week. We see that happening with the Senate Democrats. We see that, building. So I think it'll happen fairly soon, but it'll probably be the first of the week.
She said we want to see the arena. I know you've heard that before, and Mitch McConnell said forget about it. He said we're not going to do that. Yesterday, McConnell also he said this is junior varsity political hostage situations. What about that?
Mitch McConnell's pretty blunt in his assessment. He has been since the impeachment happened. And when doing so, I think what we ought to look at is we see the fact that he has the votes to continue as the Clinton trial did. And I think those are the basis. And even, some of the Senate Democrats are acknowledging it's time to move on with this. To say that she needs to see the arena is sort of disingenuous in my mind, because we already know what is actually happening in the case. They have put the articles together. They made their case. They've sent that package of information and facts are already there. So my question is, it's not a matter of an arena, it's a matter of who does she want to send over. This doesn't change. So that argument about an arena really doesn't hold true, because we know what it will look like. She just needs to send her managers over to present their case.
It appears there's movement, too, on the Republican side of the Senate that if you don't do it within 25 days, they're going to take action. Let's see, even if they have to go to that point. I want to bring a comment you made, I believe it was last night. You talked about Democrats and the Soleimani hit. You said they're in love with terrorists. You said they mourn Soleimani more than they mourn our Gold Star families, who are the ones who suffered under Soleimani. That's a problem. Why'd you say that, sir?
Well, I think the issue, and I'm very frustrated, and again, I understand their frustration, but I'm going to understand my frustration. Let me say that when I look at this and I see them coming to the floor and saying that the president assassinated Soleimani, when I see them come to the floor and not recognize the fact of a terrorist, it's sort of personal for me. So I understand the frustration that people may have with my comments, but let me understand. When I was in Iraq, I was in Balad Hospital. When I saw the results of what Mr. Soleimani did, when I saw Iranians, I saw Iraqis, I saw American soldiers, I saw coalition soldiers sitting there with legs blown off, with their body parts missing, with their many of them died. It's very personal for me. So it was very frustrating for me just to see that we don't call it what it is, and that's a president who attacked a terrorist who, by the way, was designated a terrorist by President Obama. So that's been my frustration.
Here are your words. They are in love with terrorists.
Yeah.
Did you honestly believe that?
I think their actions are betraying them at this point. I think, do all of them love terrorists? No. I think the issue that we have here, though, is that the fact that they won't acknowledge that he was a terrorist. They won't acknowledge the fact that this was a good thing for the world for Soleimani to be taken out. And from my perspective, that needs to be called out. If they would start calling him a terrorist and stop saying that our president assassinated, that's accusing our president of a crime. That's not been talked about a lot. So I think at this point we need to move on from the fact that the president did what I believe he should have done. He took out a terrorist, and the world is a better place for it.
One more thing. There's a distinction between the War Powers Resolution, whether or not you're supporting terrorists. You would agree on that, right? I mean, what that vote was about was that was their idea of politically trying to restrain in a non-binding way the president from taking more action against Iran. Last comment on that.
Well, I think Speaker Pelosi, earlier in your broadcast, actually showed it was a political document. She didn't want anybody to comment on it. She said she didn't want it to be binding because she didn't want the president to actually veto it. So she said it was a political document, a political statement, or a slap at the president. And again, the War Powers Act is something that I've talked about before. I have an issue with it on its own constitutionality anyway. So that's a whole different issue.
Okay, Doug Collins, thank you for your time. We'll see whether or not you're right about the impeachment vote later today or not. We'll talk to you real soon. Thank you for your time.